The world would burn in minutes. An unlimited black card for every single person would trigger instant global collapse. Think about it. 7.8 billion individuals suddenly possessing infinite purchasing power. One moment, everyone is working for wages. The next moment, money holds no value whatsoever. Hyperinflation would hit immediately. Not a gradual rise, but an explosion. Prices would jump by 1,000% in mere seconds. Then 1,000,000%. Then 1 billion%. All within the first hour. This is not some slow economic decline. This is an instantaneous system failure. Every single shop shelf would empty within 10 minutes. People would attempt to buy everything they could imagine: food, items, electronics, luxury cars, houses, private jets, everything. The supply of actual physical goods, however, remains finite. There are only so many apples, only so many televisions, only so many available houses in a given city or country. The demand would become infinite, but the production capacity remains exactly the same. No new factories would magically appear. No new farmers would instantly plant 1 billion extra acres of wheat. So the value shifts dramatically. Money becomes absolutely worthless. Paper or digital bits. Its utility vanishes completely. What then holds value? Scarcity becomes the ultimate currency. The last can of beans in a store now holds more worth than $1 trillion. A gallon of clean water becomes priceless. A functioning generator takes on an astronomical real-world value. Imagine 10 million people in a single major metropolitan area, New York City, for instance. Every single person receives this card. Within 5 minutes, traffic would become an insurmountable gridlock. Every single taxi would be hailed. Every single bus would be overloaded. People would attempt to buy every car on every dealership lot: new cars, used cars, even broken cars. Nobody would be selling. Everybody would be buying. The concept of commerce breaks down. Without the incentive of earned money, nobody would perform services. Who would drive the trucks delivering food to the grocery stores? Nobody. Who would staff the checkout counters? No one. Who would maintain the power grids? Nobody. Who would pick up the trash? Zero people. Essential services would cease to function almost immediately. Doctors and nurses would still want to help, but without a functioning infrastructure, they could not get to work. Their hospitals would run out of supplies in a single hour. Medicines would become unobtainable. Basic sanitation would disappear. The consequences are dire. Consider the global supply chain. A complex network of ships, planes, and trucks moves $20 trillion worth of goods every year. Each stage relies on payment. Each stage relies on people working for wages. If money has no meaning, then these supply lines halt. Ships would sit in ports. Airplanes would stay on the tarmac. Trucks would be abandoned on highways. No fuel would be transported. No parts would be manufactured. Production across all sectors would grind to a complete standstill. From electronics to clothing to construction materials, everything ceases. Governments themselves would face utter dissolution. Their tax bases would disappear entirely. Their ability to pay civil servants or military personnel vanishes. Law enforcement would collapse. Fire departments would cease to exist. Every single governmental function would evaporate. The rule of law would disappear. Anarchy would ensue within a single day. People would resort to desperate measures to acquire basic necessities. Looting would become widespread. Violence would escalate dramatically. Trust between individuals would shatter completely. The global economy currently runs on a system of trillions of transactions per day, involving hundreds of currencies. Every country has its own central bank, its own interest rates, its own economic policies. All of this sophisticated architecture, built over thousands of years, would become obsolete in an instant. The entire concept of a financial system becomes a ghost. Nobody would accept a payment that held zero value. Bartering would make a small comeback, but only for things people physically possessed and could immediately trade. It would not scale. It could not feed 7.8 billion mouths. The very definition of wealth would change overnight. It would no longer be about how much money you had in a bank account. It would be about what you could physically secure: a small plot of land that can grow food, a well for clean water, a sturdy shelter, access to tools. These would be the new symbols of security. Everything intangible would be worthless. Stocks, bonds, mutual funds, digital assets, they would all crash to absolute zero value. Their worth is derived from a functioning economy. Without one, they are imaginary. We live in a world where billions of items are produced daily, from a $1 pencil to a $1 million rocket. Each item requires raw materials, labor, and distribution. The entire process is incentivized by money. Remove that incentive, and the whole system implodes. No one is mining copper, no one is drilling for oil, no one is farming cotton. The entire chain of creation and consumption dissolves. The sheer waste of existing resources would be horrifying. Perishable goods in stores would rot. Fuel in tanks would sit unused, factories would be silent monuments, the internet would eventually stop functioning. Who would pay for the servers? Who would maintain the data centers? Who would fix the fiber optic cables? Communication would revert to local shouting. Then maybe shortwave radio if power still existed. Even then, it would be temporary. Society would devolve into countless small, isolated groups struggling to survive. Global cooperation or even national cooperation would become impossible. Every interaction would be about immediate survival. This scenario is far more extreme than any historical hyperinflation event. The Weimar Republic in 1923 saw prices double every 2 days. At one point, Zimbabwe experienced 100 billion% inflation in 2008. These were still localized to countries and had some external economic systems to fall back on. This black card scenario implies a universal collapse. No external safety net exists. There's no other currency to switch to. There's no stable economy anywhere else in the world to mitigate the damage. The human element is also critical. Imagine the psychological impact: billions of people waking up to find their entire concept of security and future plans completely obliterated. Retirement savings gone, education plans destroyed, healthcare inaccessible. Hope would diminish rapidly for many. Despair would become a common emotion. The initial euphoria of having unlimited buying power would quickly turn into terror and then resignation. The ability to buy anything loses all meaning when there's nothing left to buy. Even personal relationships would be tested beyond recognition. Families might turn on each other for dwindling resources. Communities might descend into warlordism. The thin veneer of civility that modern society rests upon would be stripped away. It is a terrifying prospect. Our complex, interconnected world is incredibly fragile to such a fundamental disruption. The illusion of infinite resources would expose the reality of finite goods. And the cost would be measured in billions of lives, not just economic numbers, actual human lives lost to starvation, disease, and violence. A single day with unlimited black cards for everyone would ensure humanity sets itself back by hundreds, if not thousands of years. From advanced technological societies, we would revert to a primitive state within a week. Hunting and gathering would become necessary again for those who could manage it. Knowledge itself would be difficult to pass on without electricity or stable education systems. The Dark Ages would seem like a picnic compared to this complete unraveling. A truly insane thought experiment demonstrating just how reliant we are on structured economic systems and the concept of scarcity for a functioning world.